What's up, everybody? The wait is finally over and totally over. Left at Wall is available now, right now. You can get Left at Wall on Apple TV, Google Play, YouTube Movies. You can get it on demand. You can buy it on DVD. The wait is totally over. Just type in Left at Wall on your search bar on your smart TV, and you can find a bunch of ways to get it. You can watch it now. Again, that's Left at Wall, wherever you get your movies. Episode 77, Eddy MacKenzie. Eddy MacKenzie is an actor, musician, and comedian. I first met Eddy at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 2023. The fest was in its final week. Many performers were understandably tired. Eddy was a constant force of positive energy. The way he speaks, it's hard to describe, but it's almost like constant laughter. He's the type of guy that when you're around him, you can't help but be in a good mood. Recently, he played Piglet in the cult horror film Blood and Honey 2. Also, side note, this interview was recorded before the 2024 presidential election. Please welcome to the show, Eddy MacKenzie. Eddy MacKenzie, how are you? Good to see you again, my friend.
Oh, I am doing well. How's yourself?
Good. So, I want to kind of start at the beginning. I met you at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival where you were doing a solo show, as most of us were, and then we connected on the Instagram, and I learned that you also play in a band, and you also act, and you also, you got a lot on your plate. So tell me, give me the snapshot of your creative life. What all do you do?
Well, as you said, a lot of pies, a lot of fingers in them. It's I always find it hard to define, a kind of overall job title, I suppose, because I do so many different things simultaneously. And people in my life tell me off a lot because I'm never available for social events because I'm always doing something of an evening, whether that is comedy or acting or playing in the band or, working perchance, who knows what might happen. I think, I've come to terms with being a kind of, I suppose, freelance entertainer, performer, that kind of thing. I have a lot of creative interests and I'm lucky enough to be able to pursue them fairly regularly. So that's the kind of vibe we're at.
Where are you from?
Oh, good question. No one ever knows. It bamboozles everyone, this accent. Let me paint the picture. I was born in London, in South London, to be exact, which is why all my vowels are very long. I've got very South England vowel pronunciation, so everything's South London, very long, very wide. And then at the age of 10, we moved up to Inverness, the Highlands, capital of the Highlands of Scotland, and that's where all the consonants became R, because Inverness talks a lot like that. It's very nasal and back of the throat, and everything's like glottal stop and all that, which kind of makes me sound more like I'm from Somerset a lot of the time, because they talk a lot like that as well. And people used to think I was from Cornwall or Somerset or that kind of thing. And then I've been living in Glasgow for 12, 13 years, I think. And I haven't picked up a Glaswegian accent, obviously, but I think I've picked up a lot of the words and a lot of the mannerisms and methods of speech. So I always say that I don't sound Glaswegian, but I talk Glaswegian. And it's the funny little words and inflections and use of different phrases that they have here. It's fantastic. But yeah, I suppose, not exactly long story short, it was a bit waffly, but London, Inverness, Glasgow, all ends of the United Kingdoms, and also, I had an affinity for loud men on the telly growing up. Your Brian Blesseds and your Rick Mayles and all these people, and so I sort of grew up impersonating them, which just makes it all the more confusing. So who knows?
how'd you wind up in Glasgow?
Well, born in London, grew up in Inverness, went to high school, secondary school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, like so many people. And I finished school, and I was all lined up for going to Edinburgh, actually. I had a place at Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh to do a film and media course, a kind of placeholder thing. I liked film. I thought I wanted to be a journalist at one point. I quite enjoyed, radio and print journalism, and I thought, let's join a dying medium in...
I did the same thing.
This was, when were we? This would have been 2007. No, 2009 I finished in high school. So yeah, everything was kind of dying at this point. And I was all set to go to university and spend 3 years doing a degree because that's what you were meant to do. And I sort of had a moment where I'm like, I don't want to do this. What am I doing? And my mum went, right, let's go. The college, the Inverness College, was having a kind of open day, like a last minute kind of, we've got some spaces. Do you want to come and study at Inverness College kind of thing? And a friend of mine, one friend was going into doing the acting course, and the other friend was going in to do the construction course. And you can tell which one I chose, I think, by from everything. I'd have been, much better off if I chose the construction course, I think. We'll not get into that. We look down these paths. So I went to Inverness College and I did the first year of an acting course. And were you
interested in acting before then? Like had you done theater and stuff, or was that literally your introduction?
No. So this is what was interesting is when I was quite a quiet kid in school initially, and I was having moved up from London into Inverness, and I talked like this, and I was ginger, and I was, oh, hello, and people were like, who is this weirdo? And so I didn't really talk. I was very silent. I had like one friend for most of primary school and some of secondary school, and there was a wonderful teacher in my first and second year of high school who said, Edward, you're going to be in the school play. I believe in you. And I was like, what? I couldn't think of anything worse than standing in front of people and having to be seen and observed and all that stuff. And then, don't you know it, I did it and it was wonderful. And she had me playing, it was a sort of take on the Pie-Eyed Piper of Hamelin story, but it was called The Pie-Eyed Piper of Hamilton. And it was about a drunken bagpiper who stole all the adults away and the kids took over the town. And, it was a big moral lesson. So I played a character who was a grown-up, and he was on the town council, and he was the chairman of the board, and he talked like this, and he had a fake mustache, and he was very powerful, and he was rah, 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 rah. And I remember the impact of coming out on stage as a tiny little child and delivering this speech and starting to talk in that accent. And suddenly the school was like, whoa, that's hilarious. And I went, oh, I quite like this. I like how this feels. And so I did the first year and the second year plays. And then I wanted to do drama in school. I wanted to do the acting in school. And my parents, bless them, were very sensible and said, no, you're going to do proper subjects. And so I did accounting and science and French and all the things that you're meant to do as a good boy. And I didn't really think about it again. I didn't think about it much. I got into music. Music became my sort of escape, and I was determined to be a rock star, and I thought that was what I was going to do. And so we come to the decision at the end of school, and my mum, it was her that kind of went, well, you were interested in the acting. Why don't you try it again, and see where it goes? And I thought, oh, my goodness, this is very unlike, I never expected her to be the one to suggest pursuing the acting. So it was interesting to push me in that direction. But that's where it was. It kind of reignited a childhood passion that I'd forgotten all about. And then it just kind of, stepping back into it was wonderful. And it kind of felt like, oh, I'm putting on a hat that I've missed. It was at the back of a cupboard, and I've put on this hat that I found again. And I'm like, oh, yeah, Eddy the actor. I remember this guy. And it was suddenly like, a switch had been turned. And I was like, oh, purpose once again. Here we go. And I've been pursuing it ever since. And so, I did the college. I did the first year. This was the late 2000s, and we had a new Conservative government come into power in the UK, and suddenly all the arts funding got cut. Hey! And so there was no money for education for anyone. And so Inverness College stopped doing the acting course. So the next year, we all had to find somewhere else to go, which is why I ended up, long story short, going to Glasgow, to answer your question. There we go. To be Coatbridge College, to be precise, in Lanarkshire, which was an old mining town, commuter town outside of Glasgow. Proper rough, proper sketchy. Ooh, Coatbridge. And I went to study acting there, and it was very weird. Sort of, you'd walk down the high street, and there'd be all sorts of hard people going, "Rrr," and we'd be flouncing around singing show tunes and things. It was quite surreal for everyone involved, I think.
Well, then what made you stay? What made you stick around Glasgow?
Well, I really took to it. It's an exciting city. It's not as pretty as Edinburgh, perhaps. It's a bit more rough around the edges. But that's what makes it brilliant. The people are, a bit rough around the edges themselves, but they're so friendly and they're so passionate and they're so, into things. Like, there's such a creative scene here in Glasgow, and there's always little filmmaking projects or plays and music was the real big thing. When I moved here, the music scene was unbelievable. I could go and see gigs every night of the week. Multiple gigs, perhaps, every night. It was insane. There'd be a gig on one place and then a late night club somewhere else and then something else. These days, it's still pretty good, but, you always look back fondly on the nostalgia of youth, Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then I always thought about moving away, and I had friends that would do the trip to London, they'd move to London, or I had friends all across England, like Manchester, Newcastle, places like that. And I always thought about it, maybe I'll move one day and see what happens, but I don't know, I just had too much of a good time in Glasgow. It's a great city, it's got great food, it's got great entertainment, it's a cool place.
I've heard great things. Yeah, no, I've never been. I've heard great things about Glasgow, though. Like, everyone speaks very highly of it. Manchester, I've been to, which I talk about music towns. I mean, I love Manchester.
My God, very cool city, very cool.
So, let's talk about the music. I mean, I know you do music, but I've never really dove into a lot of the music that you play. Like what kind of music are you drawn to?
Well, a lot of loud stuff. I'm definitely into the louder, energetic, more rock and roll, raucous side of things. Although these days, I've mellowed out a little bit, and I'm into the I like finding new stuff that interests me. And I used to be a real kind of like, I like heavy metal and I was a real kind of snob as a kid, and I've grown out of that. I'm wearing a Biggie Smalls on the t-shirt now, for God's sake. I've definitely become a little bit of a hip hop guy in the later years, and I don't know. I like the alternative side of things, probably the weirder side of things. Anything that's interesting and sort of kicks a little spark in the head, and you go, "Oh, I've never heard that before. That's funky." In terms of, stuff that I do, it's probably not as avant-garde as I'd like to think it is. Although the band that I play in, Pandacar, we are a bit odd. We sort of started off as a pretty standard punk band, and we were doing political stuff and reactionary things and very simple kind of, short, fast songs. And now we've sort of developed over the 5 years we've been together, I think. And there's elements of like noise rock and like math rock and like weird time signatures and breakdowns, and we'll play half a song and then go into something else and then do it. We're always interested in like surprising the audience, I suppose would be the way to put it, and keeping ourselves entertained at the same time. And then the comedy side of things, which is where music comes into it as well, because it's sort of musical comedy is the main kind of stuff that I do. I'd say that's probably more, your Tenacious D are a big influence.
Yeah, I could hear, like, in a good way. Like I could pick up on the Tenacious D vibe when I saw you.
People come up to me and they say, "Oh, I hope you don't mind, but you remind me of Jack Black." And I go, "Buddy, I'm well aware." I don't shy away from that influence. Big influence on my life. But also, a lot of people like, there's a great British comedian called Mitch Benn, who's a musical comedian, and he's just a lyrical genius. Wonderful songwriting. You're at Bill Bailey's as well, another British guy. I'd love to say that Tim Minchin influences me because he's very clever, but I'm not as smart as him. He's he's a real tinkly genius. I don't know. I always think that I'm one thing, and then someone will say something and go, "Oh no, you're like this," and I go, "Oh, I have no idea." But it's all melting around in the head, isn't it? And then we project it out and try and recreate or reinvent as well as we can. I think that's the creative pursuit, isn't it?
Do you ever listen to any like kind of the stateside satirical folk guys? Like have you ever listened to like John Prine and Todd Snyder and stuff like that?
Ooh, I've never heard of those two gentlemen.
Really? Okay, so that's more stateside stuff.
I don't really know a lot of the American. I know obviously Bo Burnham's massive. I know Bo Burnham. Flight of the Conchords, but they're New Zealand technically.
These are more like Americana type guys, like Heartland, Nashville type stuff, but not like the pop country stuff. Like storytelling, satirical, that sort of thing. Proper I think you'd like it. Yeah. I think you'd like it. Yeah.
That sounds good. I'll need to investigate them after this.
All right. Sounds good. So I've heard somebody actually told me that Glasgow is a very punk rock city. I'm assuming it's true.
That's what I mean. We're kind of like the rowdy brother city to Edinburgh, Edinburgh's very nice and pretty and castles and stuff, and Glasgow is the 3 a.m. in a basement, sweat dripping from the ceiling, watching some people play on stage. That's the vibe, It's you've really got to kind of, you're always working uphill in Glasgow, no one's got any money, it's always raining, everything's broken. It's very punk rock. It's very... and there's a real DIY ethos here. There's an incredible amount of like DIY promotion, promoters and venues and people that are making no money and barely getting by and just doing it for the love of the graft, And it's part of, I think, like I say, the Glaswegian identity. We are hardworking and we're rough and we're, passionate and we put in the work and it's cool. I would recommend, anyone coming to Glasgow, come and check out some of the weird basement venues, literally underground music scene going on.
You'll have to show me around because that sounds amazing. It's just funny hearing you say all this because a friend of mine who is American, who lives in Edinburgh now, I told him, I told him that I'm loosely looking into potentially moving to Edinburgh at some point because I am, and his first comment to me was actually, "I think you'd fit in Glasgow better, though." And I didn't really know why he said that, but now, in this conversation, I'm like, oh, I I get what he meant now. That makes sense.
Not to be biased, but yeah, I would always say Glasgow is cooler. Glasgow, it's got more of an awareness of its self-identity, I think. You know, Edinburgh, the people of Edinburgh are always kind of pretending to be something they're not, whereas Glaswegians are just, you know, it's shite, but it's ours. and we fight for it, and you know, everything's rain, it's rain, it's snow, it's cold, everything burns down all the time. There's terrible roads, but we make it work. We pull it together, and we work together. It's very much the same idea, I suppose, in America of the New Yorkers sounding mean but being nice, and people from LA sounding nice but being mean. That's the Edinburgh Glasgow.
There's
divide.
A bit of that. Yeah. No, there's a bit of that. Well, I also think, you know, and again, I've the only place I've ever been in Scotland is Edinburgh. But I get the vibe. It's like Edinburgh is just one of those cities of the world type places where you're going to get just a little bit of everything. Kind of like where I live in Los Angeles, where it's like that there isn't really, there's only so much of a kind of Angelino identity because there's just people from all over the world everywhere. And I feel like Edinburgh is kind of, I mean, like you have students everywhere, you have people from all over the world everywhere. Obviously, it's different during the Fringe than during all the time. But, you know, I was in this, and I want to talk about the Fringe some with you, but I was doing one of those mixed bill shows late at night. And there was, you know, a handful of British comics, myself, and then a couple Scottish comics. And there was this one guy who was going off on a tangent about how Edinburgh isn't actually Scotland. Edinburgh is complete shite. It's not real Scotland. And he was speaking in these dialects. And then he singled me out. I mean, it was all good fun. Like he was just busted chops. But he goes, the American here, California here has no idea what I'm saying. He has no clue. And then he kept going back. And he goes, you have no idea what I'm saying, dude. And I'm like, I don't. And then he left. and I turned to everyone else in the room and I go, yeah, I had no idea what he was saying. But then some of the British guys and even some of the Scottish guys in the room go, neither did we. He thought it was just you, but none of us had a clue either.
I mean, I've lived amongst them for over a decade, and I still struggle with the Glaswegian accent sometimes. It's a tough boy.
Interesting. Well, so when we met at the Fringe in 2023, did you go back this year? Did you do 24?
I did. I didn't do like a full run this year. I kind of took the year off, I suppose. But I did lots of wee spots and kind of bits and pieces here and there, and had a great time. It was very relaxing.
I mean, I had this. I loved it. I mean, I just loved being there so much. I would totally be there every year if it was as, you know, you have a much shorter commute than I do.
I mean,
it's just a train ride.
A comedian in Scotland, you really are spoiled. Like, especially like my Edinburgh friends. They're basically in the Fringe for free. They live there anyway, and they just step out their front door and they're in the biggest arts festival in the world. It's incredible.
It's incredible, and you can do whatever you want there. I mean, it's like amazing. It's the only place. I'm really talking myself into this move, by the way. It's you've been an influential guest in many ways, but like I just. Where else pretty much in the world? Well, there are other places, but for the most part, it's the only place in the world where you can like have a month worth of hour shows without leaving your town. Like there's nowhere else in the world where you could do. I mean, the closest is like Vegas in the US, but the only way you can pull that off is if you're a big name that they're putting on the marquee. You know, in Edinburgh, you don't have to be a big name to do that. You know, pretty much anyone can do that. Anyway, so when was your first Fringe?
Ooh, now. So I always say that I'm a very I was late to it, and I was a very bad. No, not bad. That's too much guilt, but I was very late to the Fringe because. I don't think I'd ever had a. I don't think I ever went when I was younger. Never went to visit it. So 2019 was probably the first time I went to the Fringe, and that was as a punter. That was going to watch stuff. This was kind of, I'd only just kind of got into comedy at that point, so I wasn't doing anything. So I just went along to go and watch and see some stuff. But I'd never been to the Fringe, even though I lived within the country. But that month of August, I was always doing something over the years. When I first came to Glasgow, I was always doing, I was always back home for summer, so I was always back home in Inverness, and I was never back for August. Or when I graduated college, every summer I was lucky enough to work with a company doing open-air Shakespeare, touring around the country during the summer.
Oh, wow.
So June, July, August, we were in, South England. We weren't here for the Fringe. So I had always missed the Fringe. I'd never done it. I'd never seen it. I'd never experienced it. So I'm pretty sure it was 2019. I went along with some friends and experienced it for the first time. And it was mind-blowing. I'd always heard about the Fringe. I kind of knew what to expect. But still, stepping out of the train station into this world of just creativity and walking up the streets, and there's circus acts and jugglers and performers of all kinds, and you're not even in a venue yet. Everything's going on. It's 200 miles an hour. You don't know what to do. So that was incredible. And I thought, oh man, 2019. I remember sitting in a beer garden with my friends going, man, next year, 2020 at the Fringe, I'm gonna do
Nothing's gonna stop me.
I'm gonna do my first show at the Fringe in 2020, man. It's gonna be so cool. And then we all know what happened. So,
well, technically, you could have done it digitally, right? Didn't they do? They did a virtual one that year.
Oh yeah, there was I didn't get involved with it. I didn't do any Zoom gigs.
Oh, you didn't do any of that?
The only thing I did was I did a game show kind of thing, which was over Zoom. And I did some videos. I submitted videos to some things, but I don't think I did any Zoom gigs. Because I heard friends that had done them, and I went, "Oh, I can't be. That's horrendous. I don't want to go there." It just sounded like a weird time.
It's different. I mean, I admittedly, I like it. It has its place. But yeah, it's not. I mean, obviously, it's no substitute for live. But when live wasn't an option, I felt like it was better than nothing.
Well, that's true. That's true. No. You got to do something. I mean, I've got friends that did the car park gigs that happened.
Oh, I did some of those.
Drive-in cinema, but comedy. And it's just people would honk their horns rather than laugh.
Or flash their lights. Yeah.
This is surreal.
Yeah. Oh, it was wild being up there. You're literally looking at the lights flashing, and you're like, oh, they like that one. Yeah.
Just reprogramming your entire understanding of how the works. Man, didn't do any of that either. I think mostly because during lockdown I was kind of reevaluating the whole way I was approaching comedy, because when I started in 2019 I was doing a character act, and I was having to write and perform through the lens of a character. And when lockdown came around, it gave me the time to sort of take a step back, reevaluate, and go, why the hell am I doing that? That's twice as much work and half as many opportunities to explore things. I couldn't be personal, etc., etc. So lockdown was quite good for me, because it gave me the time and the opportunity to go, well, I don't want to do that anymore. Let's reinvent myself. And 2021, yes, started gigging again. And was just me, was Eddy MacKenzie. And it seems to have gone all right. But 2021 was my first performance Fringe. And the only thing I did was one guest appearance on an improv game show in like the last weekend of the Fringe. But I did it. I officially performed at the Fringe, and I was very happy. And then, 2020, came back, did more things. 2023, that's when we met, and I was doing the full run of the show. It's been an interesting relationship with the Edinburgh Fringe, I would say. Having still been pretty fresh to it, really. Whereas, there are people that have got 10, 15, 20 years of Fringes under their belts. So I'm still very much a Fringe baby. But I agree with you. There's nowhere like it. It is a month of creative freedom and just general freedom. You really can kind of do anything. Like it's mad, really. The city sort of stops existing and it just becomes a big playground for comedians and their friends to just be weird and wonderful for a month. It's extraordinary. It really is. Like,
it really is. Yeah.
The fact that we're so lucky to have it. It really is ridiculous.
We are. Now to be completely well-rounded here, there are also those moments where you feel like a total imposter and the biggest loser on the planet. Those moments happen too. like it's not all wine and roses, but I'd say the good outweighs the bad by an awful lot.
Oh, for sure.
I wrote a big like Substack piece about my first experience, and I was basically like, there are some massive highs, there are some crushing lows, but I'd say the massive highs outweigh the crushing lows by a good amount. If you have the right attitude.
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
That is a big part of it.
So many people, there's that whole whataboutery, and they look at what other people are doing and they see all the reviews and all the glowing accolades and people winning prizes, and you got to focus on yourself and put the blinkers on, because if you start comparing yourself to other people, that's when you go mad, and that's when you have breakdowns, and that's when it all goes wrong. And then you've just got to relax and remember you're in the big comedic playground and having a wonderful time. But it totally is. Partway through the 2022 run, 23 last year, I had I had to take a couple of days off because I just physically couldn't continue. My body was just like, no, you need to sleep, you maniac. And I woke up one day and was like, I can't move. This is not normal. And it's that where you are doing so much every day that if you're not careful, it comes for you. And that was me. I was very humbled by that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just take a day off. And it was a couple of days off, I think, in the end, and I just relaxed and actually slept and ate a vegetable and felt better after that. But it's that you've really, I think you're so in this mode of go, and I was doing so many gigs a day and not sleeping and killing myself. It's terrible. And the body takes over and goes, I can't do this anymore. But even with that, it was a great time. Even with the horrifying physical, mental breakdowns, you still have the great time, and that's why we keep coming back. We are truly ludicrous people.
Speaking of which, I want to talk to you about Blood and Honey 2.
Oh,
so were you in the first one, or are you just in the second one?
No. So basically, the first one happened, did unbelievably well,
right?
And then they sort of rebooted it, kind of like a soft kind of rebooting of the thing, and recast everyone. It was crazy. But the reason they did that was they wanted to kind of it's like Evil Dead 2 and all these Human Centipede and all these things that kind of make a movie, it does well, and then they kind of remake the movie they wanted to make with the budget they had now.
Right, yeah. No, I know they got a bunch more They got a lot more funding for the second one. That's what
So
everyone.
much more money.
Yeah.
So the first one kind of exists as an in-universe movie in the second one. That's how they kind of retconned it, which is pretty cool. But yeah, they recast everyone, including Piglet, which meant I got involved.
Yeah. So how'd you land that?
Well, this whole process was very weird as well because I'd sort of put the acting on the back burner for a while. I remember thinking I had done a whole bunch of like self-tapes for things and nothing was coming in, and I was just like, oh god, what am I doing? Whereas
Sounds
comedy, you know where we're at.
Yeah, this sounds familiar.
The rejection, and there's only so thick a skin can be, and I was like, the comedy stuff, I just have to like turn up, and people are giving me opportunities. Like, why am I busting my ass trying to be an actor? So I talked to my agent, and we were like, we didn't really take time off. I just kind of slowed it down. And so I hadn't really thought about the acting side of things for a while. And then she texted me and said, check your emails. I've emailed you about a job. And normally, that means, there's a self-tape or there's something. You go and film yourself and embarrass yourself and no one will hire you. And I was like, oh, God, okay. And I went and checked it. And it was, the subject line was just Blood and Honey 2. And I was like, oh, that Winnie the Pooh movie. I hadn't seen it at this point. And I was like, but I knew that it was big. And I was like, oh, that's fun. Well, I wonder what this is for. And I opened the email, and it was, all the pleasantries and small talk and hello. And then, if Eddie is still interested, we'd love to cast him as Piglet. And I had no idea that I was interested at this point. I suddenly was very, very interested. And it turned out that my agent, bless her, had seen the casting call they'd put out, put me forward for it, and they'd apparently, watched the showreel and the self-tape and whatever, and went, he's our man. So I did
direct offer. Oh, that's beautiful.
Insane. I didn't talk to any of them. I hadn't met any of them. There was no audition process. And then I turn up on set, which was when I first met the guys, and they were like, yeah, we just loved the energy in your show reel. We saw your pictures, and we thought, this is the guy. Incredible. And it's just one of those moments where it literally fell in my lap. Truly insane. But also, it's one of those moments where it's it's one of these, overnight success stories. Not that I'm an overnight, but it's one of these ones where, he got it out of nowhere. But then there's the decade of career that's happened, and all the short films and student projects and weird things that I've done to build a CV to this point and have the show reel that they saw, which meant that they went, that's the guy.
Yeah.
So there's so many years of working away at something, and then it suddenly happens.
Suddenly
it's a very
It's
such a weird industry, isn't it?
Weird's putting it gently, but yeah.
Just you could be working away at it so proactively, and then when you step away, the universe can go, oh, here you go, there we are, boom, from out of nowhere. And so it's weird, and I always feel it's like you mentioned earlier about the imposter syndrome thing. I do feel kind of guilty almost when people ask, oh, how did you get the Piglet role? And I go, oh, I got it, and I'm like, oh, I know how, because I know how hard the struggle is, and I feel like a complete fraud, but I have to remind myself that it's been 10 years of a career up to this point, and the work has culminated in this, and it's just a strange industry, and nothing makes sense. You can't explain it, but here we are.
Was it shot in Scotland then? Was it all shot in Scotland, or?
Oh no, all in England, South England.
England, okay.
Yes.
And that was the first one too. It was an English thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Because a lot of people think it's American, the distribution company is American, but the Jagged Edge production is all British people. Like the director, the producer, most of the cast. There are some Americans involved and some, people from other countries, which, I think the prosthetics people are English as well. It's a very English production, but it feels American. That's kind of what's, I think, confuses people about it sometimes. But, all shot, basically, all my bits at least were in between Brighton and London in this wonderful woodland area.
Nice.
All between there. So we got to run around the woods at night and go mad. It was extraordinary.
What is the key to happiness?
Ooh. Well, that is a humdinger. I
know that was sort of like a transition list, like boom. But you know what? It was next on my list. So
it's a good question. Let's get right into it. I don't know. You see, people have this idea of me as just this like real happy guy, and people ask me like they'll come up to me at gigs and be like, "How are you so bubbly and positive?" And like I always say that I've got the opposite of resting bitch face. I'm only 2 seconds away from a laugh at any time, but I don't really know why. It's just how I am. I'm a jolly fella, and I wish I knew what the secret, so to speak, was.
I wish you did too, because I was hoping you'd tell me. I was hoping you'd help me out.
I've sat with it a lot, and I've thought about it, and like, I think a lot of it is I reached a point in life where, I hit an age where I kind of stopped caring about other people's opinions a lot, which helps with being happy. And I don't know, it's I don't want to say it's a natural thing because that sounds really arsey, but like I just am pretty content most of the time. I obviously have days where I'm like, oh, woe is me, and we all get sad, and there are times when I'm down, and I think people don't see that side, and especially they don't see me in the morning. I'm not a morning person. This is not 8 a.m. No. So people see me at gigs or just out and about during the day, and that's when I'm at my best. I have warmed up to that point, and I'm a happy little guy. But I don't know. I just it takes a lot to rile me. I think I would much rather enjoy things and just even when I'm in a situation where like there's maybe some aggression or someone's trying to like annoy me or there's something going on, I'm just like turn the other cheek, man, whatever, doesn't bother me. And I think I don't know what it is, and I wish I had some sort of answer because it does just happen.
Well, are you a happy guy? Like, would you say you are a happy person?
Well, this is it. I'm annoyingly happy, I would say. Like, because I've got some, like, and a part of it is no one ever takes me seriously a lot of the time, because when I am annoyed at something, I sound like this, and people go, "Oh, Eddie, ho, 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 ho." And I'm like, "No, take me," frustrated, But yeah, I really don't understand it, and it's not a bad thing to not understand, I suppose. But like, I'm just pretty chill. And a lot of it is I have a confidence. Not in myself so much. It's not so much self-confidence as it is a confidence that things will work out. What is the worst that can happen? And it's a positivity that I think, mainly because my behavior always gets rewarded by the universe. I generally, I don't plan very well. I don't consider things. I'm not exactly a big brain kind of guy, but like with the Piglet thing, and like with so many things, stuff just works out. Just why stress about it? That's kind of the attitude I have, and it's not even a conscious thing. I'm just like, oh, it's all right, it's cool. And I wish I could explain it. I wish I could the psychology of it. But I think at some point I just kind of decided, yeah, let's just go with the flow. Things work out, man. We're not dead yet. Let's just be happy. And I don't know. It's a subconscious thing. Maybe I should. They'll examine my brain when I'm dead, and there'll be some kind of anomaly with a lobe or whatever it is. But
yeah, I mean, hey, maybe, and I unfortunately, I personally likely won't be able to benefit from that because you and I are around the same age. So by the time they figure it all out, I'll be gone too, most likely. So I won't be able to. They'll come out with oh, we have the Eddy pill now. You can just
the ultimate pep. It's just very odd. I think to think about it. I think it's that. I think it's just it's a positivity and a confidence and probably a lack of I never worry enough. I think that's the thing. I'm always just like, yeah, what's going to happen? And I think it must be infuriating to people around me, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the answer. Just believe. Not even self-belief. Believe in the universe. And that sounds all airy-fairy, doesn't it? Goodness me. But just believe in good things happening, And then even by doing good things, you're putting good things out into the world. So I think just being positive in itself breeds positivity because you get so many grumpy bastards, especially in this country. You get so many.
Oh, come over to the States.
I thought Americans. We see Americans on TV and they're like, "Hey, man, nice to see you, positivity," Whereas,
not like that.
It's not like
it's not really like that. I mean, there's a little bit of everything, like anywhere else, but yeah, it's we're definitely going through a weird stretch here, to put it gently.
We're watching over here going, oh my god.
Well, especially a lot will be over by the time this drops, but as of the recording of this, we're a few days away from a big one. So
we had a rough couple of years here, and now we're like, oh, take over, buddy. It's what a world.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, hey, in closing, plug away. Tell people where they can learn more about you, where they can find your comedy, your music, everything.
Yes, well, I don't know if the name will be on the screen, but Eddy MacKenzie is who I am, and is who you want to search up. Eddy with a Y, MacKenzie. It's the spelling is what catches people out. The pronunciation, Eddy MacKenzie, but they either do Eddy with an IE or MC Kenzie or
sure.
Google that, and I'm basically Eddy MacKenzie everywhere. On Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is the one I'm really into these days.
Oh,
if
nice.
You want to see the kind of nonsense that I get up to on a day-to-day basis, TikTok's probably the main guy. I'm all over the gaff. Yeah, check out the band Panda Car. They always like when I plug them. They get very annoyed when I go on a podcast and then I haven't talked about the band. They go, "Why didn't you talk about the band, Eddy?" And so there we go. There's the plug. Panda Car. If you like your music energetic and fun and a little bit weird, that's for you. I mean, I do all sorts of stuff. I have a podcast, The Badger Shelf. You can find that somewhere. It's on Spotify and things like that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm always terrible at this part of podcast when people go, plug yourself, and I go, I exist online. I'm very bad at, I'm very bad at, like, self-promotion, you know, because, again, it's that, like, I don't want to be it's the
it'll work out. They'll find me.
Well, that's part of it as well. I'm also aware of not wanting to be a douche and be like, hey, find me online, man. Like and subscribe. And, you know, oh, God, it's a very Scottish thing to kind of downplay your success in this country. You know, a lot of people, there's a whole idea where you ask someone, how you doing? You go, I'm all right. You know, I've not been up to much. And, you know, 100 important things have happened. But we don't talk about it. We don't share things. And it's a very, like, depressing Scottish aspect of our culture, but I'm trying to get better at it. So Google me, TikTok, YouTube. I've got things on YouTube. Watch Blood and Honey 2. Yeah, there's me as Piglet. Somebody drew that. Nice. Can you believe it?
That's so cool.
Fan art. That's insane. People DM me things on Instagram, like drawings and stuff. I am. It's all blowing. I can't believe any of it. Why would anyone want to find me? That's the question. But you can. Eddy MacKenzie.
Eddy, thanks so much for doing this, man.
Thank you for having me. Yes, it's been very cool.
That was Eddy MacKenzie. Be sure to check out all of his stuff. Check out Blood and Honey, too. It's a fun film. And, and by the way, Eddy recently got married. Between this interview and now, Eddy got married, so congratulations, Eddy. Music for the 1000 Podcast is provided by Andrew Saxon. Be sure to check out his podcast, the Baywatching Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review, would you? This is still, in the big scheme of things, a very, very new show, and every 5-star review helps. So please, if you are able, leave a 5-star review wherever you get this podcast. If you want to support this show and the sustainability, and best way to do so is patreon.com/romplacone. For a give what you can level, you get the 1,000 episodes before they're released to the public. You get insider information on upcoming films and productions. You get exclusive access to other products. I'm going to have a big announcement there soon. And we do a Zoom hangout once a month. It's a really, really cool community. And you can become part of it for as low as $1 a month. That's patreon.com/romplacone. All right, this is episode 77. I'm glad, for 77, you think of Joe Strummer. So I'm glad we definitely had a punk rock vibe for this episode. There was a good pairing there. So we're almost at 80. We're almost at another decade. See you next week. Peace. Hey guys, Ron Placone here. Take your own 1,000 challenge. No, you don't need to interview 1,000 people, although if you want to do that, go for it. Your 1,000 challenge can be whatever you want. Maybe you want to call a friend out of the blue once a week. Maybe you want to read a book every month. Maybe you want to start a different garden every season. I guess that might be dependent on where you live. Look, the point of the challenge is taking on an endeavor that enriches your life in some way, and it can be measured. And then, of course, you do it regularly. That's what 1,000 is doing for me, and hopefully for you too. The main reason for this podcast and every podcast I've ever done is to build community. So take your own challenge. Then join our Facebook group. It's called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? ? That's 1,000 What's Your Challenge ? And post about what your 1,000 challenge is and the progress you're making. All I ask is that people be encouraging of each other's challenges. This is personal and vulnerable, so be cool. There's enough negativity on social media. We don't need to add to it. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, hopefully in the future we'll be expanding to places like Discord, Reddit, but for now, we're starting on Facebook. And again, that Facebook group is called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? See you there.